as quickly as possible and to the greatest extent possible. Science is clear. For children and young adults, COVID-19 poses minimal risk, and there is no scientific evidence for wide community spread at schools. Last month, CDC urged schools to reopen as soon as possible. Unlike a year ago, risks are now better known and more manageable, and I'm confident that our administration, teachers, and students will be able to successfully navigate in-person learning. After all, many school districts across our great state have been successfully operating fully in person since August, and their students, teachers, administrators, and their community are all better for it. Meanwhile, too many of our students continue to struggle in the current model, and it is heartbreaking for me as a parent of 2 kids at OHS. Negative impact of their education, their mental health, their social life, and their overall being is deep and profound. Our children deserve the opportunity to receive the best education possible, to learn from teachers face-to-face, to sing in school rather than to themselves on Google Meet, to see their friends and to be shown that the school administration cares and is willing to put them first. With great power comes great responsibility, and now is the time for you as board members to put the well-being of students first and get our children back on track towards a more successful and happier future. This is from Ann Spildy. When schools were opening all around us, we stayed online. When we questioned your decision, you told us we needed to listen to science to stay safe. So we did, even though we both voiced our concerns. Now Verona, Edgewood, and Stoughton are opening their doors for full-time in-person instruction 5 days a week because the science says it's okay. Is Oregon going to follow suit and do what's best for our children and offer full-day instruction at all grade levels? Are you going to listen to the science? Our older kids need to be back in school in person full-time 5 days a week. 4 half days does not cut it. How can you look us parents in the eye and tell us they are not falling behind academically? They need to be in school, as not all have been able to thrive online. I know it has been a struggle for my children academically, emotionally, and mentally. Emotional and mental health are also big factors that you need to consider. They need their teachers, their friends, and the structure. This is from Nikki Holtzen. Dear School Board and Dr. Bergstrom, as of mid-February, over 75% of schools across our state are utilizing full in-person learning for their students. As schools across Dane County are now transitioning to 5 full days per week of education, we offer the same to your students. Without doubt, there are many students in our district who have suffered educational regression. Do you have plans to help these students catch up? And so what are they? Some locales are discussing extending the school year into the summer. Would this be a possibility? How will parents be able to assess whether their child or children have experienced educational regression? And what resources will you have for parents to help their children recover? This school year, the amount of in-person education that OSD has offered their students has been significantly less than private schools within Dane County and public schools just outside of Dane County. This has created a hardship on students and their families. Knowing that our open enrollment period for 21-22 school year ends in April, what assurance can you provide parents and students that OSD will offer equivalent in-person education to your students in the Oregon School District as those in private schools and neighboring schools? And that completes the comments that were submitted by 4 p.m. and they were read in the order that we received them. And thank you to the 4 of you who submitted those comments for our consideration. That takes us to B, information items, opening of school update 2021. Leslie, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Okay. Hello, everybody. We're here tonight to do a very brief update to discuss the next steps for our phased restart plan. We won't be going over the health and safety protocols at this time. There's a very robust FAQ that's going live on our website later tonight, as well as more information on health and safety protocols that will be shared at the March 22nd board meeting. Instead, this evening, I just want to do a couple of things quickly. And the first is to review the criteria that we utilize to make decisions at this point in our pandemic planning, changing health guidance, the impact of the vaccine, and always the continual evaluation of the effectiveness of the educational model we are currently using. So as far as changing health guidance, we've already discussed the fact that public health emergency order number 14 came out and goes until April 7th. And of course, as expected, face coverings continue to be a requirement. Employees are still expected to maintain at least 6 feet of physical distance from students. And this is an important piece, when 6 feet of distance is not possible for our students, to ensure the students keep groups as static as possible or as cohorts and resist mixing as much as possible. Also encouraging the use of common areas to keep student groups from mixing. When students cannot be cohorted, the 6 feet of distance is no longer required, but it certainly is still recommended. An important piece. A vaccination update. We're moving along quite well related to vaccinations. Our staff, and you can see here that includes coaches, substitute teachers, bus drivers, etc. They have either gone to have their first shot at a place such as Walgreens, the first vaccination shot, or they have participated in a public health clinic at Alliant Energy Center that began on March 9th and is expected to conclude by March 21st. So that means if a staff member chose to get their 1-dose vaccine, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine and Alliant Energy, then the latest they could potentially be vaccinated at this point in time would be March 21st. And that would be approximately 2 weeks until reaching full protection status. Now, the educational model, we've spent a lot of time on why we've made the choices that we have made. So I won't go over that or won't belabor that this evening. Just note that there are different models for K-6 and 7-12, and we've spoken quite a bit about why that is. Now, the medical working group, they played a very important role in this past week. They met on Monday night. We asked them 4 questions. And the first question was related to safety recommendations they had for in-person vocal performance. So our music teachers in general have been working together to utilize the latest recommendations on safety practices for performance, and that's for band and for choir. So while the medical working group didn't have a lot of input on this particular question, I think that the information that is currently out has really given us a path forward. So at the high school, in-person vocal performance will resume on April 5th. K-8 will resume at a similar time, but not identical, as every level has something slightly different that's happening and makes them unique. Band and chorus, when we return from our in-person learning, will perform outside, weather permitting. We have tents ordered for every school. And I know some of you are thinking, why in the world would you send kids outside to, let's say, play their band instrument? Because actually that's the only way they can play their band instrument in Dane County at this time, because the band mask that has the slit that allows them to blow into their instrument does not count as a face covering under Dane County's mask mandate. So in order to be able to play, they can have their masks with the slit for playing if they are outside 6 feet apart in a group of less than 50, which of course we will. That's been all mapped out quite well already. And then for choir, we're also planning to do our vocal performance practices outside under tents, weather permitting. And we've also purchased considerable protective equipment in order to make sure that students can play music in school. And orchestra will continue to perform indoors. Now, the other 3 questions that we posed to the medical working group on Monday night were related to next steps for phased restart. First, we spoke to them about our plans for grades K through 6 and really asked them what input they had related to safety practices that we were using or planning to use. And they gave us some excellent suggestions and things to consider related to lunch, because of course to eat lunch, the mask has to come off. And so the safety practices related to eating are really critical, as well as making sure that our recess plans are safe, etc. And we feel very comfortable with that. We have all the schools have divided their playground into zones. Cohorts will play only with their cohort in their zone. They'll work their way through the zones. It's an organized recess if there ever was one. But for 7-12, we really needed a different kind of input, because, as I mentioned previously, the emergency order stated that the 6 feet of social distancing is still a recommendation if you cannot cohort. And in grades 7 through 12, we cannot cohort. The students are mixing from class to class, mixing carefully, but mixing nevertheless. So we had some concerns about presenting a plan where the distance between students would be less than 6 feet. However, there were a few things that made us feel comfortable even asking the question of the medical working group. And the first is the success of schools throughout the state and throughout the country who have not been using physical distance as a part of their planning throughout the school year and have not seen transmission. That in addition to the increasing amount of research related to 3 feet versus 6 feet. So with that in mind, we took that to the medical working group, and the consensus was a strong consensus that less than 6 feet of distancing is adequate in schools to keep students safe, as long as the safety measures are in place and strictly adhered to. Measures such as masking, hand washing, and good ventilation. And also with the caveat that as long as case counts don't begin to rise between now and when we plan a return. Speaking of when we plan to return, the fourth question we posed to the medical working group is what would be the best timing post spring break to ensure that we were making the safest decision for return possible. And there was a lot of encouragement just to bring the students back as soon as possible. And there were also some people on the medical advisory who recommended a 5 to 6 day cycle for people who may have been infected late in spring break. So we had a wide variety, I would guess, of input related to that. And honestly, that is what allowed us to thoughtfully select the date for the next step in our planning. So April 12th is when we plan to bring back our students in grades K through 6 in person 4 days a week. And we'll talk about a little bit more about that in a moment. And our students in grades 7 through 12 in person for an expanded flip model 4 days a week, half days. They would be leaving before lunch. So next step for grades K through 6. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, 7:50 to 2:50, and room corners 7:55 to 2:55. We made that slight adjustment in order to ensure that students weren't waiting at a school before they could walk into their classroom, because we have put a lot of time into ensuring the buses are getting there just in time for students to walk in and go to class, so that they aren't congregating in hallways at the cafeteria or any other place, because we know that students congregating close to one another for long periods of time, not cohorted, is not what we want to do. So Oregon Online will remain online for the remainder of the semester. And as you remember, our Oregon Online students have Oregon School District teachers, but they aren't the same teachers who are teaching phased restart. So our students in grades 7 through 12, well, that is going to look a little bit different than K6. So we want to be able to combine groups A and group B and bring them together for Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, 8:35 to 12:20 or 8:35 to 12:30 shifts, with of course learning hubs available in the afternoons for students who need additional time. And Oregon Online would remain synchronous in their instruction in the afternoons. So our teachers will be teaching face-to-face in the morning and Oregon Online in the afternoon because they are the same teachers. And Wednesdays for both groups will continue to be asynchronous learning days for students to have the planning time that is required for 7 through 12 to have 3 different modes of instruction, and for K through 6 to allow for Oregon Online and Phased Restart teachers to plan together in a meaningful way, because it's really important to us that both groups of students are receiving the same high quality instruction. So here are the action steps that bring us to be able to do this for our students on March 12th, and it is a tight timeline. So post this meeting, an email will be sent to families where they'll be given information along with a form to fill out if they would like to switch models. And for those of us who have been very sure from the beginning exactly what we want to do, the idea that there are a lot of people who are continuing to switch models may be difficult to comprehend, but for many families, every time we take a step forward is a really key decision-making point for them as a family. And they have to decide what they're going to do and where they want their children to be and what they feel comfortable with. And it's been important to us to allow people that option at those key junctures. But we're giving them a very tight turnaround, unfortunately, because there's so much logistical planning that needs to happen. And it needs to happen no matter what, but then you add in the complexity of people changing. And it's not just changing models, that's certainly important, and that adds in many complexities, although we believe it's important that people have the ability to do so. But also we would be rebuilding our bus routes from scratch yet again, because we are now taking our students and combining them into, for K6, a morning and an afternoon route, as opposed to 2 different runs every day. So that takes quite a bit of logistical planning. And I know Andy's here if there's something he'd like to add to help explain why that can take some time.
So the other thing that it's fair to mention is, we provide a lot of great deal of service to our parents, and we allow people to change things. And so not only is it combining the 2 cohorts into one route and what that might mean, but it's also identifying students that want to move from Oregon Online to Phased Restart, or even students that might be in Phased Restart that don't feel comfortable coming back and go Oregon Online. That could change the route fairly significantly depending on where they are. So we have to wait until we have that data to do kind of the more detailed end of the work, which takes a little bit longer. And so that's, as soon as we get the data, then we can start moving that forward. The survey is due, I believe, on Sunday. We gave the principals a couple days to kind of chase down people a little bit, make sure that everybody knows that we need that information, make sure that we have all the information, and then that gives Mark a little bit of time in the next week or so to kind of redo the routes. We also like to drive the routes once the routes are all kind of combined, so that we can make sure that our times are right and so that nobody's waiting outside for the buses. As much as possible, we try to have that as nailed down as possible before the week that we're out there.
Thanks, Andy. I think I'll also add that we have very personalized transportation service, and oftentimes when family plans are changing, and remember, for families, this is yet another big change, and so they have to make all kinds of adjustments in their life too. And where we pick up or drop off students then often changes, because they're using different daycare arrangements, or now they're going to grandma's house, or all kinds of things begin to change to make that just slightly more complicated. And it is important to note that this change will also increase the number of students on a bus. So we'll definitely be 2 to a seat. And if we are more than that, then we also have to do some rebuilding of routes to adjust capacities on the buses. And of course, if we had to add a bus, we would try to do that. But first we try to do some remixing of the students in the routing. So we also have to rebuild student and staff schedules, and that is it's a very complex business. And when students are moving in and out of phased restart or Oregon Online, that's a complication. But also now having, and this is a great thing, but having our classes such as art or music or world language, now that they're in person, this means a creation of a new schedule, which means adjustments for Oregon Online schedules, as well as student schedules, as well as staff coverage. For example, when students have individualized education plans because they have an identified learning disability, they may, in their IEP, have support that is guaranteed to them in certain classes. When we make all these changes, we then have to go back and rebuild all of the schedules that are connected to special education to ensure that our students have the class support that they are legally entitled to through their IEP. And then after all of that stuff gets started, we have spring break. And while we're certainly encouraging staff, absolutely important for staff to take a little bit of time off, we also know that there will be many of us who need to continue with this logistical planning, because by the time the week that we return from spring break, the bus routes must be finalized and communicated. Students need to have their new schedules, and they need to learn the new procedures, which is another really important thing. For those of us who have families where the children in the families transition well, and they're just sort of go with the flow kids, that's great. But there are a lot of families where students' transitions just are much harder on them. And we need to do a lot of planning and a lot of foreshadowing to make sure that those transitions are comfortable. And actually, just about every child, no matter, even if their needs aren't unique, will need some planning on, okay, what is lunch going to look like? How will I eat my lunch? How will I do recess? The older kids need to understand the expectations for coming to school and leaving school. All of these things require lessons and prepared videos that are shown to students so they know exactly what is expected of them. And you might think that that's unnecessary, but it is the reason that our transitions have been as smooth as they have been, as we have really prepared as adults, and we've done everything possible to prepare the students. We're also hoping to use the week of April 5th, in addition to the week of April 22nd, to do as much state testing as we possibly can, so that when our students come back for full day schedules at the elementary level in particular, as much of the forward testing as can be behind them is behind them. And I know the middle school and the high school are working to create the best possible assessment plans for them, for that group of students also. So you can tell this takes a lot of planning, nothing insurmountable, it just takes a little bit of time. So what we want to be able to do for our staff is we want to be able to move the April 23rd Professional Development Day to April 9th to allow them to use the Friday before our students return, our phased restart students return for more in-person instruction, allow them that time to reconfigure their classrooms, to do all of the last minute planning that needs to happen, to ensure that they are as prepared as the students need them to be for such a big change on April 12th. They need the time. We also think it would be very good for the students, once they come in on April 12th, to not have another day off on April 23rd. We think the consistency of the next couple of weeks will be really important to them. So one of the reasons it was critical to meet tonight is we want to be able to tell our families that the April 23rd Professional Development Day has been moved to April 9th, because that impacts them significantly too. They have to think about a lot of things including childcare for before and after school, etc., or childcare. So we thought it was important to speak to you as soon as possible to talk about amending the calendar for the 2021 school year that the board had previously approved. So that is really, that is the plan we have for April 12th as the target date for students re-entering school for more in-person instruction. And then we need a change to the calendar to ensure that we're giving our staff some prep time and our students some consistency once they do return on April 12th.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Bergstrom. I'm going to go through with the board members to see if there are any questions about that. Heather.
Thank you, Dr. Bergstrom. I don't have any questions, and I think I have a really obnoxious echo. So I will just say thank you for the immense amount of work that you and your team and everybody is doing to make this happen. Thanks.
Kevin.
Thank you, Leslie, for the presentation. I have a few questions. So I'm having a hard time understanding on the cohorting part. How are schools in Dane County that, I mean, I've been in Edgewood, I can't say I've been in Verona or Stoughton, but how are they going back to school without cohorting? I mean, my understanding is they're going back 5 days a week, and I don't know the dates if they're planning for that.
Mm-hmm. Well, elementary students, it is easy to cohort. You can.
Right, but I'm asking the high schools and the junior highs, like what?
They can't. They wouldn't be cohorting if they were going back, just like we're not cohorting and going back.
Right, but can you go back to one of the slides that was talking about cohorting? I'm just not understanding because I thought the 6 foot thing was, let's see, maybe one more.
Oh, should we? Okay, I know what you're saying. Back to the order, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So our medical
No, what
advisory
we're
board
saying
also
is-
said feet wasn't required, right? And then if
It's
the cohorting,
recommended.
I'm sorry.
6 feet is still recommended.
Recommended.
However, when we inquired with the medical working group, they said that less than 6 feet is acceptable given the current numbers. Consequently, that's why we're recommending that 712 come back. And when they come back, they'll have shortened days due to the flip model, but they will not be cohorted.
So I guess the thing that's going through my mind is this. I mean, we brought up the bus schedule, the bus route, I get all that, but it feels to me like we have no intention of going away from the flip model for the rest of the year, because if we go away from the flip model, we're already talking mid-April before you get up to this next. And don't get me wrong, I am happy we're moving forward. It's a step in the right direction, so don't get me wrong. But I've been very vocal from the start for many weeks about us to push to get kids back into school, because we know how the suffering's happening. People have the option to go Oregon online, and we keep coming back to the flip model, which I understand the reason for it. But I think at some point we need to be transparent with the parents that maybe there's not an intention to go away from that the rest of the year, unless the Oregon online survey comes back that, I forget the number, if it's 20-25% want to go back to school. So at what point in the year do we decide that we're all in on the flip model, this is how we're finishing the school year, and be transparent with parents?
Mm-hmm. I think that's very fair to say right now, that would be the intention. Because unless we're eliminating Oregon Online, and we aren't, we've committed to that for the remainder of the year, unless, as you say, all 30% of the high school kids who are in it decide to come back, which I think is very, very unlikely.
Yeah, and I know that 30% won't come back, but I'm saying if half of the 30% come back, if it's 15%. Do we have the ability, sorry, Leslie, do we have the ability to Zoom in class live like a lot of the rest of the country's doing? And my cousins and kids or my own kids have been experiencing with people that have stayed online. Do we have that technical capability in our schools?
We do. It's been a deliberate choice not to utilize that model, but yes, we have that capability.
Okay, but I guess at minimum, what I'm thinking is important, that we're very transparent with these parents. I mean, you heard the letters that came in. I agree with a lot of the points being made. And if our intention is to stay with the flip model, which it appears it is, I think we need to be transparent with them and just get it out there.
I agree. That is the intention.
Okay. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
No questions from me. Thanks for the presentation.
Tim,
I just want to clarify or repeat, when we got together with the medical advisory board on Monday, there was not unanimous, but nearly unanimous vote to get kids back in school as quickly as possible. The issue here with the flip model is that we use the same staff to teach the online group as we do the kids who are coming to school on a daily basis, which makes it difficult, if not impossible, to move away from or to move towards full-time in-person education. So one question I have, a number of other districts are doing the same. Most of the other districts are doing the same. Are any of the other districts moving to dismantle the online portion of their education, or are they all keep staying with both options?
Yes, we have never, as a group, had a discussion about anyone choosing to not continue to offer online. As a matter of fact, the discussion has been more about how many people might still want it next year. And of course, it would have to be different. It couldn't be like this, because when school starts, we hope that we are absolutely 5 days a week regular, like we have always been. But trying to find options in case there are families who want them, that's been a discussion that has at least been started by many of the people in the superintendent group.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any further questions.
Troy,
Okay, thank you, Dr. Bergstrom. I don't have any questions, but just a couple of highlights. I don't have any questions because this is really just the next step of the plan that we've heard for many, many months. I do want to, I guess, highlight that full days are an option for those students who need it at OMS and OHS. So we do, as you mentioned, Dr. Bergstrom, we do have learning hubs for the afternoons so that those students who really do need full days of in-person schooling, that is available. So I just wanted to make sure that was accentuated. Also, I want to also point out that our transitions so far have been very smooth, as you stated, and that's due to all the extra effort that the administration and the teachers have put in to make sure that this all happens smoothly. And as a follow-up to that, I just also want to recognize, as you did, Dr. Bergstrom, that a significant amount of our staff is going to be working over spring break in order to carry out those action steps that you clearly laid out there. And those are not contracted hours. And our staff does it because they always do it, and that's the kind of people that we have. I just want to recognize that and say thank you to all the staff that are gearing up to make this next step. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Krista.
Thanks, Leslie. I know a lot of work went into this plan, and I appreciate Andy's comments about the busing and what a complex issue that is as families make choices. And I guess, Kevin used the word transparency, and I kind of have a problem with that, and I'm going to be honest. We've been transparent from the start, saying we were going to offer Oregon online all year. And so if we make a change to take that away, that's a problem for me, because at 712, we have more than 600 students that are choosing Oregon online. And I think with this move, we probably will have more. So I think that's really important and we've always said that we believe the best educational model is the model where each student has the opportunity to be live with the teacher, whether in person or online. And to Troy's point, parents that want 4 days all in, they can stay for a learning hub. Wednesdays, we've always been transparent about Wednesdays, that because 712, we have teachers that are teaching online and in person. They need that time on Wednesday because we don't expect them to work 18 hours a day, because now instead of what they've always done in terms of one lesson plan, they are doing 2 lesson plans. I think those are really important concepts, and it's really important that we are clear when we talk about these things, and we've been talking about them all year. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful, Kevin. I just think it's really important when the words we choose to talk about these things, that we have been transparent. And then secondly, I really appreciate the work that's being done the week after spring break to try and move mandated state testing to that week, because I think the principle that you've lined out is we've always wanted to go in this straight path, that when we go, we want to go and be consistent. And so if we try and move some of the state testing to the week right after spring break, that gives us the ability that when we start on the 12th with this further instruction in person, that we can just go and not have stops and starts with professional development days or state testing. So I really appreciate the thinking that went into that. So thank you.
Anything else, Krista?
Nope.
Okay, circle back
Steve?
around. Did, Heather, anything else? Kevin, I know you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. A couple clarifications. I have not made a comment about us being transparent backwards. I'm talking about forwards. I mean, the constraint is the flip model for 7 to 12. I think we can all agree to that. And I think it's only fair that the flip model is the constraint, and the flip model is what we're going to follow through the rest of the year. I don't know why we wouldn't just say that that's what it is, because when we come back to this model, again, a move in the right direction, there's not a lot of the school year left, right? So the other comment I made is I have never suggested getting rid of Oregon Online. I've totally respected the people that have decided to do that. We need to continue to do it. That's why I asked the question about synchronous learning with Zoom, which is the way a lot of schools are doing it. They're seeing the same content, seeing the same presentation at the same time. So that's why I mentioned that. I never recommended getting rid of Oregon Online. So that's, I guess, what I'd say.
Anna, anything else? You just, okay, I'm just going through. Tim, anything else?
No.
Troy? Krista? All right. Thanks, Dr. Bergstrom, for the update. I know you guys have got a ton of work to do to get this implemented. Both you, the administration, and the teachers. So thank you in advance for all that's going to be happening in the next couple of weeks. That takes us to the action item that we need to take to implement that plan. That would be to change the date regarding the April 23rd, 21 Professional Development Day to April 9th. And we need to take that action in order, because we approved it earlier, to change it, we have to take that action. So your recommendation, Dr. Bergstrom, is to for the board to formally move the April 23rd PD day to April 9th, correct?
It is, thank you.
All right, I need a motion to that effect, if there is one.
I make a motion to adjust the professional development day from April 23rd to April 9th.
All right, is there a second to that motion?
Yeah, I'll second that. This is Heather.
Heather with a second. Any discussion? Go the other way. Chris, anything?
Yeah, I think this is great because this move allows us to move forward with our in-person instruction next phase. So I'm excited about it.
Troy? Tim?
Nothing.
Anna?
I think it makes a lot of sense. I'm glad that we're looking at that and allowing that in person to be fully implemented without another day off. So I just think it's a great decision and a good move.
Kevin? Anything on that?
Yeah, good move in the right direction, and thanks for the flexibility that it brings.
Heather? Anything? Nope, we're good. All right, call the roll, Katie. The motion is to move the April 23 PD to April 9.
Ms. Vita,
Yes.
Ms. Garrison,
Yes.
Mr. Maring,
Yes.
Ms. Flanagan,
Yes.
Mr. Pankratz,
Yes.
Mr. LeBrun,
Yes.
Mr. Zach.
Yes, motion carries. The PD day is appropriately changed then to April 9th. That concludes our calendar for this evening. I need a motion to adjourn, subject to everybody having a great rest of their St. Patrick's Day.
I'll move to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, call the roll, Katie?
Ms. Flanagan,
Yes.
Ms. Bijak,
Yes.
Ms. Garrison,
Yes.
Mr. Maring,
Yes.
Mr. Pankratz,
Yes.
Mr. LeBrun,
Yes.
Mr. Zak.
Yes, motion carries. The board's adjourned at 6:14. Thanks, everyone.